So I decided to do something else for once, and instead of writing another LinkedIn article that no one would read, I decided to record a YouTube video that most probably no one would watch. And in this YouTube video, I decided to actually look a little bit back into technology that, in my opinion, got forgotten a little bit due to emergence of new hip and cool tools like Microsoft Teams or a whole new breed of co-pilots. And this technology that I'm talking about is Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. And what I wanted to do is actually to see how it stands test of time and how we could implement it within our model-driven apps. Also, how we could enrich it with Canvas apps. And since it's 2024, it goes without saying that in anything you do, you need to implement some AI functionality inside of it. So I did just that. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the video and see how it goes. So we'll start with a little demonstration on how functionality works. And what you can see now already is my Outlook client with an email inquiry about Power Platform consultancy services popped in. So for this email, if I would press on this little neat app icon on the right side, I will be then represented with a dialog from which I can open my Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. And once that is opened, it will already map the Dataverse contact to the sender of email, if it exists, of course. And in this case, since my Dataverse environment already contains this contact, its basic information is now being represented on the right side. Now, to track this email into my Dataverse environment, I need to set regarding. So in here, I will choose the contact to which I want to track this email against. Now, in Dataverse, you can, well, select any kind of record you want. It can be account, it can be lead, opportunity, or whatever you will create on your own. But in this case, I'm tracking my emails against contacts. So once the email is tracked, I can open the form of contact, and then I will be represented with the Canvas application that will contain a summary for this email. So what happened in the backend is that once the email is being created within Dataverse environment, I am sending an HTTP request to OpenAI to summarize me that email. Now, since this is a Canvas application, you can, stretch your imagination and think of any other business case you want to cover it with it, because, well, it gives us pretty much endless opportunities or possibilities to extend it to our liking. For example, implementing tagging, searching, or whatever else you want. So now we will jump into exact steps that you would need to do to get such functionality into your Dataverse environment. So the first thing that you'll have to do is actually install Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. And the funny thing is that once application is installed in your Model-DrivenApps environment, you will have this really nice, neat error message saying installation failed. But that shouldn't discourage you from installing it. Regardless of the error message, the application still functions fully well in Model-DrivenApps environment. Now, in order to install it, you would need to open your app source in Power Platform Admin Center. And in here, you would need to find Dynamics 365 for Outlook. So you will be represented with this icon. So it's just now the wizard of installation. You would press Get Now and install. So it would take some time, but in general, it's very straightforward. You choose your environment and then just press install and wait for that nice error message to pop up. So that's pretty much it on installation part. And next part is actually the configuration. Once Dynamics 365 app for Outlook is installed, you can go ahead now and configure your mailbox and also add that app into your Outlook client. To do so, you will have to go into advanced settings, which are just the legacy settings of model-driven apps. And to do so, you have to press on this little cog icon and then choose advanced settings. So I have my settings opened already. And the first step will be to go into your email configuration and check on mailboxes. Once you find the mailbox you're interested in, you need to open it. So in this case, I opened my own mailbox, and in here, there are a few steps that you will need to take. So for starters, you will need to choose your synchronization method. In most cases, server-side synchronization will do just fine. And also in here, you will have to approve your email and then test and enable it. If everything goes well, you will see success statuses in here. Once that is done, and then what we need to do is actually add Outlook Dynamics 365 app for Outlook into our Outlook client. And to do so, we have to go back into our settings and just instead of email configuration, we choose Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. And from here, it's really simple. So you just select your mailbox or user, and then you just press Add App to Outlook. Now, there is one caveat, and it's very important to delete emails from your deleted folder and your draft folder, because otherwise the status here will just be stuck on pending and will not represent you with any proper error message. So within 15 minutes, you will get your app in Outlook. And the next step would be then to go ahead and configure our application. Once our Outlook client is set up nice and dandy, what we can do next is actually go into Dynamics 365 app for Outlook and customize it. Now, fortunately for us, it supports the same good old-fashioned model-driven app design form as any other model-driven app. So if I would go now into my model-driven app navigation, I can already see in the middle that I have my application here. So if I would press on these three little dots, I can then open my app in Designer, and then we will be greeted with the familiar form here. Now it might represent some error messages because it's being opened in the Designer instead of our Outlook client. And in my contact forms, I actually excluded everything else apart from one that I've created from scratch. And inside of this form, I just included the Canvas application. So now if I would open this form, I will be then greeted with my setup, which excludes all the fields and leaves only one tab that contains a Canvas application. Now we can find that Canvas application inside components. And in here, if I would write Canvas, I can then clearly see that there is this component. If I press on it, I will be then greeted with a dialog from which I can set up some data. So two fields are optional and one is necessary, which is app ID. So this is the ID of your Canvas application. And once that is filled in, then it will be loaded here on the screen. So there is one additional important step that you need to do in order for this to work out fine. There's this little customized Canvas app link here. So once your Canvas app is embedded inside your model-driven app form, what you then need to do is press this exact little link to pass the context as an object into your Canvas application. So let me press it and I will show what I mean. On the left side, we will see the navigation bar. And in that navigation bar, there will be this object called Model-Driven Form Integration. So this is the context that we are passing from our parent form to our Canvas app. And we can use that context, for example, to get the ID of parent record. If I open this Canvas application inside of the contact form, naturally, we would like to then filter out the contact events, which is just the entity for email, subject, or summary encapsulation. So we would like to get that contact ID and filter out our contact events based on it. And this is where this model-driven form integration comes into place, because it passes us this contact ID. And that's basically it. Other than that, it's just normal Canvas application in which you can include as many functionality as you want. So since we have our Canvas application and Dynamics 365 app for Outlook set up, we can now jump into the next step, which is creating integration service to our OpenAI tenant to get our emails summarized. Now for this job, I chose to use plugins, but in general, you can use whatever you like. For example, Power Automate Flow. I just thought that plugins looks cooler, so therefore I chose to use them instead. So I will now open my Visual Studio and let's go through the code. So as I mentioned, I'm using plugins, and in this particular case, I have post-operation plugin that will trigger every time an email entity will be created. And in this code, I'm checking actually the regarding object ID of that email. And if it's contact, then I'm following on with further execution. So I don't really want my plugin to run on every time email is created. I'm checking if email is attached to the contact, and only then I'm following on with the logic. Next thing, I'm just getting email content, which is the description field in Dataverse email entity. Then I'm summarizing that email over API call to OpenAI. So, and this API call is very straightforward. So I'm using a simple HTTP client. Of course, there are libraries that you could use, but since I'm registering a plugin over .NET framework and I don't want to use merge, I'm just using out-of-the-box HTTP client functionality, which works perfectly fine in this case. So I'm creating authentication header value with my bearer token. So you can get your token in OpenAI service, like in your tenant. So you can create as many of those tokens as you want. And then I'm creating my request object, which leverages GPT 3.5 turbo model. For this task, it's enough. But if you would have more sophisticated tasks to do, I would, use GPT-4. And yeah, so next thing is that I'm creating my message array, which contains the prompt and my content that I'm passing. And yeah, and then it's just the basic procedure of sending API request and then parsing the result into a class object. And then from that class object, I'm just returning the content as a string. So now if I would scroll up again, once I get my summary from OpenAI service, I'm then creating a contact event entity that I'm attaching to the contact. For the event content, I'm assigning the summary that I got from OpenAI. Then for the name, I'm just assigning email. It doesn't matter, to be honest. It very much depends on your business logic, whatever you like to do. In my case, I just hard coded a string, and that's that. And I'm also assigning the contact reference to that newly created contact event entity. And that's it. That's basically the whole logic behind it. Now I will repeat myself. You can achieve the same functionality with Power Automate Flow. I think even maybe faster than one could do it in .NET framework plugins, but it's just the way I like to do stuff. And it's my video, so my rules. So apparently this is all that I wanted to show this time. And usually it never happens, but if I missed something, please let me know in the comment section below. Last but not least, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.